Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Nikolai Ardey. Nikolai is Executive Director and Head of Volkswagen Group Innovation. Welcome, Nikolai.
Hello, Alberto. So, thank you
so
for
Nikolai.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure. And again, what is Volkswagen has been doing the past few years is really interesting, and particularly is interesting what Volkswagen has been doing on innovation, and specifically on the open innovation front. As people know, Volkswagen has been recognized among the corporate startup stars 2022 a few months ago in London, and that means that you guys have been doing something quite interesting on the innovation, and specifically on the open innovation front. And so we are pretty eager to deep dive into what you guys have been doing in the past months and years, and particularly what you're up to. And so the first immediate question for you, Nikolai, is just if you can describe us the overall approach to innovation of a large group like Volkswagen.
Yeah, innovation at Volkswagen is a sophisticated network at first. So there are many brands belonging to the Volkswagen Group, and each brand, of course, has its own innovation activities and also entities distributed all over the world somehow. But we have one central common innovation unit, which is the unit I am in charge of. And there we are trying to generate as much as possible of synergies between the brands. So of course, when we look to passenger cars or to trucks or to other business parts of our company, then there are, of course, common topics which are relevant to each of the brands, like decarbonization, like certain software technologies, like things like autonomous drive, like future customer interface, and many more topics. And it's just worthwhile to coordinate on that and to share the resources between the brands, doing all this research only once, and do it in a coordinated manner. And on the other hand, if you would like to leverage innovation to a maximum, you have to be present on each of the most hottest innovation hotspots all over the world. And it is would not be very efficient to do this by every brand separately. So also from this angle, it is worthwhile to have one central innovation unit to be present all over the world at the most relevant hotspots for our business, and then to support the brands in that regard.
So that is important because again, the specificity of Volkswagen is, as you mentioned, to having multiple brands, and again, there are brands with a pretty long heritage, and most of them they might have a certain. First of all, they have a know-how in terms of innovation. On the other hand, they have probably also the desire of maintaining their own independence, flavor. That is what the brands represent, and that typically creates issues in trying to coordinate and leverage it. As you mentioned, there are some topics that are transversal that might be efficiently managed at corporate level, as mentioned, you identify a few of them. And probably something similar that the modularization that brands like Volkswagen are doing across the different sub-brands that they have. And on the other hand, the ability to cope with the different initiatives is very, very important. First of all, you mentioned the presence in the different innovation hotspots. In which hotspots, in which regions are you directly present?
Yeah, first in Asia, in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Tokyo, in Singapore. So this is our Asian footprint. And Israel, of course, in Tel Aviv. And in US, Silicon Valley is, of course, mandatory in Belmont. And then there's something very interesting going on in Tennessee. So we have close cooperation with University of Tennessee and the Oak Ridge National Lab in Knoxville, which is a fantastic research facility looking into also mainly green tech and green energy supply topics, also chemical topics for battery technology and nuclear science and so on. So this is also a very interesting hotspot for us. So these are the locations we are present, and then there are other brands. For instance, Audi is active at the MIT in Boston, and further also Audi is active in Berlin with the innovation unit. So we are collaborating in that regard, yes. So it's also our responsibility as a group innovation to form and organize and connect this innovation network all over the group. This was not so established so far up to now, but we are just about to establish now an open innovation platform for all the brands and all the sometimes also tiny innovation units, which makes fun to work with, invites everybody, an open innovation platform in order to connect all these topics. So not to just govern them, because innovation shouldn't be governed in a central manner. It should be connected, and it should be an open network. So this is at first what we understand by open innovation, to connect innovation to be open within our group, and then of course also towards the external innovation ecosystem.
I think the definition you just used, open within the group, is particularly intriguing, because it looks quite contradictory, but actually knowing a large corporation and knowing the complexities in the hurdles and the multiple separate rooms division that large corporations do have, actually the proposition being open within our group makes a lot of sense. And I believe there is a lot of effort to really make it work and not just be.
Yeah. There's a lot of support by our board, by the way. So they gave us the mandate to set up this kind of open network, and they would want us to act as a network player rather than to stay into our closed labs and perform research on all these tiny molecules down there, doing everything by ourselves. So we should better collaborate between each other within the group and also with the external innovation system. Yeah.
If you had to provide some advice, to some tips based on your experience and the others of the work of connecting inside the group to some of your peers and colleagues, what would be the top ones? What you have learned in the past few years, trying to connecting the dots?
Oh, that's a difficult question. So I'm not. It's not so much my style of work to provide tips to other colleagues how they can do better. But it is it is a lot of fun to be part of this international innovation network, and What I would suggest to everybody is enjoy to collaborate with Chinese colleagues, with Israel colleagues, visit those sites, and fortunately now we can also enter China again, and it will be my next visit, of course, as soon as possible to visit my colleagues there, to be out there. It's so important to meet in person and to be there, to have to breathe the spirit of these local ecosystems. Just it's not sufficient to do it from your desk in your home base.
Just, I think I was in Tel Aviv a few months ago. Actually, we are opening our innovation center in Tel Aviv as Mind the Bridge, and I had the pleasure to meet with that is your colleagues over there, and she presented me the Konnect Volkswagen Group Innovation that is based in Tel Aviv. And then in Tel Aviv you have also the Porsche APX Accelerators. Can you explain what is the goal and how these two models are working? Because I found them pretty interesting.
Yeah, sure. At least for Konnect, I can provide the details. I'm not so deep into the APX activities. Of course, I know closely what they are about and what their targets are. But if we start with Konnect, this is an office which we have there already for several years, and meanwhile are established there. It's a group of around 10 employees who are really entrained in the local innovation ecosystem. They provide challenges there. They perform hackathons, and they do all the scouting in this ecosystem all over Israel. Having this established position, they are also invited by and taken seriously by those startups, and this is a really valuable asset for us, because this gives us the access to those companies, and they are doing POCs locally in Israel, or in connection or in collaboration with the headquarters in Wolfsburg or any other brand of the group. And via these POCs, they try to or help those companies to launch scaling projects together with the brands in order to help them generate business. And this is a good way to speed up with innovation, because the ecosystem in Israel is a very special one. Feeded by the military science, which is there in really an outstanding manner, and then the Israel spirit of startup, and the general spirit of innovation in Israel, which is really very special, and generates. Let's say they established to be the second largest startup community all over the world, behind just the Silicon Valley, and so this is already a good reason to be there, or a must to be there. And of course, there's also Skoda active, Skoda Digital Lab in Israel, and also Porsche Digital. And all three labs are collaborating really closely. We even are thinking to collocate also. So this is of course a community there, and the Porsche APX is. This is a very open and very early phase. Early seed incubator somehow. So they are at first investing, as far as I know, in early seed companies, but mainly they provide those portfolio companies access to the resources or to perform their POCs and scale up projects together with Porsche and the Axel Springer company.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what an early seed company needs because they don't have the infrastructure normally to perform those POCs, and they often also need help in terms of consulting or coaching in business aspects, and this is what they provide, to my knowledge, and this is a very good idea.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the approach also of the SEAT activity in Barcelona, where they also, this is based on challenges they perform, and then they select a certain number of companies. I think in the first cohort, it was 7 companies who have been awarded, to get then the support to be also coached, to get access to the workshops, and to get also a certain funding for their early seed projects. So this is an early seed activity which brings startup spirit and corporate spirit together. So it's inspiring the corporate on the one hand, and it's also and supporting startup in a way in a very early phase.
Okay, so then Porsche APX together with Axel Springer and Stratford B from Seattle mostly focus on early stage acceleration, while Konnect as well also the digital lab of Skoda are mostly focused on what today is called the venture client, mostly POC,
exactly.
test technologies and then bring into the sphere. The other component typically among the different open innovation tools are investments. Again, the accelerators are doing small early stage investments, but as far as I know, there is a 300 million fund that Volkswagen as a group has invested with a specific focus on decarbonization. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, this is in the final stage of launch at the moment. So we plan to be ready for investment to the end of this quarter. So this will be a completely independent CVC structure, independent in that regard, that we don't control and don't govern it on behalf of our group. So this has to be an independent GP/LP construction to take quick decisions on certain investments, but they will get strong support from the group in a way that we provide them our scouting network all over the world. We provide them our competency and AI tools to evaluate companies, to also evaluate the relevance of technologies, the feasibility of technologies, and this is just as a consulting input for them, which they can take or leave it. And when we then have portfolio companies in the fund, then we try to find business partners within the group, because having such a business partner who supports the startup to get a scale-up project, to connect the startup with Volkswagen as a potential customer of this technology, this would be a strong growth support for them, and also in that way also would drive the multiple of the value, hopefully. So this would be so far our recipe, and the topics and the scope content-wise is for our first fund limited to decarbonization technologies. Yes.
And
to have a clear focus and to not to have a clear target area for that.
So the fund will be independent. That is a pretty common recent trend for many corporates to have a separate independent corporate venture capital fund. Volkswagen will be the only LP, or there will be also...
No, we are open also to other LPs, and so we will have a first closing and then a second closing, so we are quite confident that we can also enlarge the volume quite a lot by including additional LPs. Yeah.
That is another strong differentiator, because many corporates have a separate vehicle, but at the end they remain into the
I think this is an important step, because this also brings a little bit more, let's say, fundament into the whole story, a better degree of valuation of any topics which we invest in there. So it's not only our opinion which counts there. We have also to stand up to maybe and also just a financial LP and provide him or make him satisfied. And this is also challenging us, and I think increasing the let's say the chances or the opportunities which we have, because of course we should not forget that we are newcomers in that field, and we are making baby steps in a way. So would be, I think, too ambitious to think that we would be really successful from the very first minute. So to have other LPs within our group, if there are not too many, would of course I think help the whole story to be successful at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is actually, this is a very hot topic again in the discussion, the open innovation debates again, which is the right model for corporate venture capital. And the most emerging trend is to having these vehicles separates because they want to be independent. Obviously, as a separate vehicle is supposed to have their own goals that typically are more financial rather than strategic. And that's at the end pose the question is, but if I'm a big company and I have an investment arm, it should be strategic or financial? Because at the end, whatever is the size of the fund, the financial results are particular, and let's say are not material for the P&L of the company, whatever they are. So if you are performing greatly, so the real value is the strategic one. But sometimes,
I think the reason that it is, if it is strategic, it will be also successful from a financial point of view. Because if it fits to our strategy, then we are in a position to support them, and then we could be potential customers of this technology, and of course then it will be also successful from a financial point of view. So the one is the pre-decision or the prerequisite for the other from our point of view.
Yeah, again, strategy is never a good reason to make poor financial decision. This is typically a good way of saying typically in the sand. But again, this is the big debate that many, and it's difficult to draw a line in the sand exactly to understand which is the perfect model. But again, we're seeing that many corporates are trying to keep the CVC a bit more far than most of the traditional corporate typically has kept. And by the way, it's pretty bizarre that most of the leading companies that have done such a choice are German companies. Think about Siemens with Next 47, think about SAP with Sapphire, now also Volkswagen. So that means that it substantially is quite a track record of German company and try to keep the CVC arm a bit more far from the corporate epicentrum than most of the other corporates are doing. But I believe that is quite interesting.
It's the only way to keep it agile and quick in their decisions. Otherwise, you would have to consolidate each investment decision in the supervisory board, and this would slow down everything dramatically. So this has to be non-controlled, of course. The biggest hurdle for those CVCs, from my point of view, and what the feedback was, which we got, is to onboard those companies into our corporate. So to launch the business with those companies. But in any case, if when this is successful to onboard the company in the corporate, the value explodes. And from this point of view, there would be an intrinsic motivation of the fund itself to find those companies where the chances or the opportunities would be best to be successful in that regard.
Yeah, at the end, everything that matters is integration, integrating innovation inside the organization, and integrating innovation from outside inside the organization. Typically, there is a lot of, let's say, barriers, resistance, the not invented here syndrome. And that's, again, it is the part that makes your work so hard and so fascinating, because, again, going through these barriers that are cemented in culture is so difficult. So what have been the most difficult challenge that you have faced? How you try to get around them? What are your recipes here?
In general, in terms of innovation, well, it's hard to say. So, of course, it is always a challenge to land innovations with the right maturity and to transfer them into the pre-development and serious departments. So it is, especially due to this non-invented here syndrome, it is a common, let's say, a common phenomenon that those departments who should overtake innovations for instance, from my department, ask many questions. Is this already checked? Is this checked? Is that checked? And it is a hard challenge for the pre-development departments to gain the right maturity within the short phase of their part of the process. It's in many cases it's just 1 year, and within 1 year they have to find the right supplier. They have to have a final spec for the whole thing, and they have to find a target commitment for a serious development project. And this means that an innovation unit like ours has to learn to provide more maturity, to transfer it to those pre-development departments, to make it more easy for them to overtake it. I think this is something which we learned during the last years. And as speed is everything in the context of innovation and time to market, and we are exposed to a severe competition, especially in China at the moment. So we have to speed up. And it means that we have to shorten a little bit our focus, not looking too far, which is very convenient for innovators to look towards 2050, which is very convenient because you don't have to prove everything, rather than to focus on the next few years, let's say the phase of 2027 towards 2030. So this is the phase where we have our levers in our hands, and what we are or should be measured or tracked about is which part of the innovations which we will see from on 2027 onwards will be there because our innovation unit put their contribution to it. So this is what we have to do to speed up now, and this means to gain more maturity. And on the other hand, of course, we should not miss all these breakthrough innovations, which is the other end of the story. So we have to keep a certain degree of freedom, which we say, okay, should be about 25% or so of our budget, but we should not ask the brands or our customers what we should do with the money. So this is to our own competency to say, okay, there's quantum computing, for instance, which is the next breakthrough thing, or fusion energy or whatever, which will be the next big step. And this is, of course, something which we have also to have the free resources and to keep the free resources for that. And this is also appreciated by our management.
Yeah, I think you touched two very, very relevant points in what you just said. First of all, that one of the big barriers in integrated innovation from outside is the level of maturity. And based on our experiences specifically for solutions that are supposed to solve needs coming from the business line, the business unit in the next few years, they have to be mature solutions that are deployment grade. And so they're talking about mostly scale-ups rather than startups, so mature companies. And that's make the integration effort not easy, but definitely more manageable because again, one of the things that most of your colleagues tell me is, yes, sometimes startups tend to oversell too much. And when I put the startups in front of my engineers, they perceive immediately the BS word at a mile of distance. So that's not work. So you need to give them something that is deployment ready and solid. And this is one side of the business. On the other hand, obviously, you need to not just to think about Volkswagen 2027, but Volkswagen also 2040, 2035, 2050, and that requires also some ability to be forward-looking, to test innovation, and probably requires different tools. For the first one, the venture client is the ideal tool because it's able to deliver through POCs, test innovation, and then deploy, mostly scales, mostly material solution, while other tools like venture builder, corporate venture capital we just mentioned, the presence in the outposts, the ability to spot the different trends are the ingredients that help you to educate your long-term site, and from you helping your top management to make educated decision about the future strategy. So this is the right balance that need to be kept.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is again is the fun and the hardest of the job that you're doing. And
absolutely. So it's big fun to have this width of activities and to have this short-term topics and to generate really product impact. On the other hand, to have all these strategic outlooks and the future research and trend research topics, and to bring all these things together, this is really, really exciting. Yeah.
Exciting and interesting. Just to close with a positive note, I heard through the grapevines that you are a great singer.
Great. Great in size. Yes. Yeah. Yes,
what about this passion? And
yeah, this singing is really my passion. So I got quite an education in vocal arts also, and I'm acting as a soloist on stage on opera and opera festivals, and also in many other concerts, in oratoria concerts in the church and so on. So this is my passion during my free time. Yes.
So congratulations. By the way, I'm running a specific series of interviewing people doing the role of open innovation. That is a new work kind of work. So it's not a specific preparation. And one of the outcomes of these interviews is that most of these people are coming from all the possible different backgrounds, including humanistic background, including art background. And so now I have also a singer with definitely a musician background to add to my collection of that means that probably is an emerging profession that requires a lot of different skills that need to be patched together in order to find solutions. And by the way, it's pretty close to the work that you've been doing every day, just to balance different needs, different skills. You need to understand technology, you need to understand business, you need to understand strategy, you need to understand politics, mix them together.
Yeah,
And
you need to stay curious about everything, and you should not be a specialist very deeply in a certain subject, and because then you lose your curiosity to the new subject.
that's perfect. So, Nikolai, thank you so much for your time. All the best for your new endeavors and for your continue your singing passion. And thank you for this conversation. We definitely stay in touch for getting updates about you guys up to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alberto. It was really a pleasure talking to you.